Fantastic. Thank you, Jane. Thank you for getting us rolling here. So this is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. And as folks are joining in, I'll get us started with how to participate. So we invite everybody to jump in on this Zoom line directly if you're able to. If you want direct coaching, that's amazing. Part of how we work is that as you're sharing your questions and we're working to go together in a coaching conversation, is that people listening in, other people are learning vicariously. As I've been working with people in advancing in their careers, what I've found, and we have lots of research that shows this, is that there's a few things that really help people take off. One is one-to-one coaching. And then another thing is small groups. And this is kind of like the small groups because we typically have somewhere between 10 to 20 people in here. So it's a smaller size group. But then another thing that's also really helpful is to have a program sequenced out that helps people develop, that helps them take the next steps. And so many people who I coach join in here, and people who are interested about coaching, and people who are wanting help in their careers and just curious about what coaching is, how that works to help somebody advance in their careers. Welcome, Frederick. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm just sharing with everybody about how to engage in Career Lab. And so there's a few ways. We love it when you jump online like Frederick, who I can't quite see your face, so that's okay. If you don't want to be seen, you don't need to be. But Frederick, the benefit of you being on Zoom is that I'm able to work one-to-one with you. And so I was sharing about how the work that you do, the questions that you ask, that serves everybody listening in. Now, if you're unable to jump in on Zoom, you can type your questions into the comment section and Jane will get those over to us. So go ahead and type in any questions you have. We always have a topic for each week. It generates out of the last week's conversation, out of last week's coaching into what people are looking at. So we develop those every week. This week, we're talking about your professional skills. And we're going to go a little deeper into professional skills. And you know, there's always, of course, just knowing the job. But there's some things that we want to discuss kind of undergirding that. So we'll talk about that, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that you are welcome to ask any questions. There's no question too small, no question too big. Sometimes people join in week after week, continuing on the question that they have about how to advance in their careers. So you might just be starting out fresh out of high school or college, looking for your first career opportunity, or you could be mid-career and maybe the pandemic stirred things up, or maybe you're just at a point in your job where you're like, I want something more here. Is it going to be in this location or is it somewhere else? Any of this is fine. Even if you're looking towards, you know, I've had a successful career and I'm really wanting to make sure that I'm living in my career, adding the most benefit that I can and really doing it purposefully. So any questions that you have are welcome here. As we're getting started today, I want to remind everybody, love it when you can jump in on Zoom. That's going to be the best way to interact and ask questions and engage. If you're unable to, feel free to type questions into the comments section. Jane Coletto will get those over to us. And I'm actually going to begin with a question that we didn't get to last week because it fits in perfectly with today's topic. So the question is, I'm really interested in what key things can make you stand out in a room full of job seekers with the same certifications as yourself. Great question. How do you show the interviewers and hiring manager your level of passion and dedication to success in the interview process while not sharing too much? Oh, this is a beautiful question. So what we want to, and we may have the person asking this question may have been able to jump in. So that's great. If that's the case, let me know if you have further questions. But I want to start off by saying that a few weeks ago, when we had Dr. Mike Zwell on, he actually wrote the book on hiring competencies. And what they found in hiring is that the most important thing, what people are really looking for, at least interviewers who are good at interviewing and knowing what they need, what they're looking for is results orientation, initiative, and influence. So of course you need to have the skill set available. Sometimes you don't even need that. Sometimes there might be a certification or something that you don't have yet. But what people are really wanting to know is, are you the person for the job? And if you need a certification or something, you can get that. That doesn't, that might be different than, a big degree or something. But when interviewing, you want to let people know that you get results, you take initiative on projects, and that you're able to influence people. That's kind of the undergirding of what they're looking for. We often say that interviewers are looking for two things, or a boss hiring is looking for two things. Number one, does this person get shit done? Number two, is this somebody I want to work with? Now that other one, is this somebody I want to work with? Well, we can get into that more, and to really dig into that, you're going to want to do our emotional intelligence weekend, the More Life training, coming up very soon. No cost to that thing. That will take you deep into social and emotional intelligence. But we're going to look at results orientation and how to communicate that right now, and see where we go in a little bit. So back to Leslie's question. If you really want to stand out in a room, and I love that you put in the caveat here, because you also don't want to say too much. The way to go about this, I highly recommend doing some mock interviewing so that you get comfortable with this. But you want to have your resume set up so that in the bullet points, it shows that you get results, specific things, led project on da-da-da, and increased revenue 10%, something like that. And if it's not in sales, then sometimes where we have people in IT coming in who are helping people with their accounting systems, moved company from paper-based accounting to digital, like that kind of thing. So it's like, okay, great. This person is responsible for those results. And welcome, Beth. Good to have you. And so what you want to do is be able to just give quick bottom line answers to their questions. And then, depending on the type of interviewing it is, to be able to follow up with intelligent questions about the role that you're interviewing for. So you want to find out, assuming what they're hiring you for, what the problem is, why they need you, and then asking intelligent questions about that specifically. So I remember Dr. Mike Wells shared this. If he was going to be interviewing, he would say, so I'm part of this coaching organization. Let's say he's going in to start a new department or something. And we realized that we needed a graduate university. None of us knew anything about creating a graduate university, but I raised my hand and said I'd do it. And that was 15 years ago. We have a graduate university now fully accredited. And so you just give a very grounded example of, here's where the company was or whatever. This is what they needed. This is what we did. This is what I did, how I contributed to it. So I am hoping that's helping, Leslie. Okay, great. You're saying it is. Good. And the thing to practice in interviewing, especially people often talk about confidence and wanting to have more confidence. That's a little simplistic. I prefer to break it down more and say, I don't really have confidence at something until I've done it. and if I'm waiting for myself to have confidence, I probably wouldn't be hosting a LinkedIn Live career coaching workshop every week. I don't know how this is going to go every time. Every time I'm logging in here, I feel afraid. And what I'm doing is I'm getting more and more comfortable with my feelings, with feeling the upsets, the stirs of, as I first get on here right at noon, one person's on, I'm like, oh shoot, is nobody else going to come? So there's that stuff is going to be going on for you when you're interviewing. And if you try to jump over your feelings of anxiety, if you try to disregard that, you're going to become less human or less relatable. That's probably a better way to say it. Less relatable in that interview. And so you actually want to train yourself in learning how to use your anxiety to address specific things, to address what they're anxious about. That's why I mentioned the thing about when you're interviewing, you want to pay attention to what their needs are and ask intelligent questions about the role that you're interviewing for. Your anxiety, because you're picturing yourself doing this job, and it's like, okay, what kind of team would I have? I noticed that they're asking for this certification. It takes about 3 months to get that certification. I don't have it, but clearly I'm, this job makes sense for me. So might I ask, is that going to be on me to get that by the time I'm onboarded, or is that something that, you're going to compensate me for, or stuff like that? So that you're using your anxiety rather than avoiding it to help deepen the relationship. So I'm hoping that's helpful, a way to think about confidence. Your confidence comes when you're doing a good job. Your confidence comes after you've already achieved the results. That anxiety about wanting to achieve the results is human, is normal. And if you're not paying attention to it, too often what I see happen is that people will talk and talk and talk in an interview. They just want to say, here's all the reasons you should hire me. And most people's attention span just isn't that long, and you're going to lose people. So you want to have quick, short answers, and then be able to ask them questions about the role. Welcome, Terry. Good to have you here. So welcome, everybody. I'm going to do a quick room reset. This is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central. And we invite everybody to jump in, ask the questions that you have on your heart, whatever it is you're working on. If you can jump in on Zoom to ask those questions, that's the best way. If that's not possible for you, then go ahead and put your questions into the comment section. Or even if you're on Zoom and it's a sensitive question, you can just type your question into the chat and let me know, and I'll address the question that way. So welcome again, everybody. Good to see your faces. What are you working on? How can we support you today? What questions do you have? Frederick.
Yes.
Jobs for Africa.
Yeah, thank you, George, first of all, for inviting me to this very interesting session. So my name is Frederick Moyer. I'm originally from Kenya, but I'm based in Switzerland. I am the...
Welcome.
Thank you. And I am the Secretary General of an organization called Jobs for Africa.
Uh-huh.
It's about taking African youth to the next level through skills development, entrepreneurship, and of course, job creation. Job creation, because jobs, they're not created by magic once. You cannot just say, let there be jobs. You've got to build that ecosystem, companies that are going to have demand for labor. And so we focus not only on entrepreneurial skills, but also building, companies, especially small and medium-sized enterprises.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we do. I got very much interested in your focus on skills and employability, especially. I've been collaborating with an organization called InnoPark here in Switzerland, and they are supported by the French, not the French, but the Swiss government in terms of helping people who are transitioning from a job.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, through unemployment benefits. And then, because the job market has changed a lot. So what the Swiss government tries to do is that they enable people to upgrade their skills, especially digital skills. If you've been working for a long
Okay.
time, you haven't had enough time to sort of see what skills are required by the job market. And so it gives you 6 months to a year for you to be able to do. And most of the training that is offered is, first of all, as far as employability, is some of the things you talked about. What are some of the competencies that are required, especially soft skills? And what you just said is very important in terms of what they do. They also focus on leadership skills. That's also very important. And then they enable you to do a project in the
Got it.
area
So,
of
so Frederick,
entrepreneurship.
thank you for giving us some background on what you're doing. And I'm glad that some of what I've shared so far is helpful. How can I support you further? What is it what is a challenge that you are working on right now?
Yeah, why I give you that background is that I'm working with the African Union Commission to provide some of the skills you talked about to young people. And so we are discussing actually a project, a pilot initiative, starting from, so our idea, Africa is such a big continent. So we going to have regional hubs in Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, and that kind of thing. And
Okay.
some of the
So you're
training that,
developing training and programs to help
yeah,
with these skills.
yeah.
I got a question for you. Do most of the students that you're working with, do they have phones?
Yes, they do have mobile phones, yeah.
So would a career app be something that would be helpful to them?
That would be excellent.
Okay, we're in the process of creating one right now, set to be launching October, November.
Yeah.
Driving for October, but I'm giving myself a little cushion.
Okay.
So I would be very, I'd love to stay in touch with you about this.
Yeah.
We've found that the process that works for people, we've pulled from our sales program. It's basically intentional networking. So looking at the companies that you need or that you're interested in, and then finding how to connect with the people in those companies. And then also developing a discipline of reaching out. There's some people, making a phone call is not a big deal. Some people that's more of a challenge. And so we look at a gentle process of getting people out of their comfort zone into making contact that they might not have made before. So that's a phase of it. And then there's also resume building, but we go into the resume. I'm not so concerned about pretty looking resumes. What we focus on is resumes that really communicate results. Okay. And then the other part, if we're breaking it into 3 sections, is how to talk about yourself. Oh, there is more on interviewing in there too, but then there's a how to talk about yourself. And a lot of people, as we've been doing this career lab, have said their least favorite question is tell me about yourself. And so that, kind of depending on where you're at in your networking process and in the relationship with people, how to talk about yourself is really something that, it is a skill and something that a lot of people don't really know how to do well. So those are the 3 kind of big components that we've found as people move through those, that they get the results. Now, the other thing here is the community. I shared this at the beginning. People who I work with one-to-one, I'm always inviting them here too, because there's something about having a community and learning vicariously and getting that other people are in the journey with you that really helps people move faster. So I'm just throwing out some ideas. I definitely want to stay in touch with you about this. But what other questions do you have, and how could we serve you right now?
I think based on what you said at the beginning, I see the gist of what you do. So my my coming into this was just to get to know more about what you do
Okay.
and how we can collaborate. Yeah. So the app is definitely something that I would like to pursue with you.
Okay, beautiful. Frederick, also, we'll send you our the YouTube channel that where we post these career labs that we're doing. I know that the hour-long video and this kind of content is not. I know that especially younger people are not. Their attention spans aren't going to work well with this, so we're doing it just to get something going, and you can always go back and refer to certain parts. So this may be a helpful tool, but it's probably going to be a combination of the YouTube channel, app, and maybe even some form of one-to-one, or we'll see. But this is really cool to hear. I'm so glad you're joining in.
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Well, fantastic. Welcome. We've got some more folks joining in here on Zoom. I'm going to do a quick room reset. We are talking about your professional skills, the professional skills needed. And we're kind of going into the undergirding of that, the social emotional intelligence aspects, and what oftentimes you need to be able to communicate that you know how to do the job. And there's some specific ways that we've been talking about that. But anyway, for those of you just joining in, welcome. You are welcome to come off mute and ask questions. You're welcome to come off mute and share a way that you're relating to somebody in their journey, in their career development. And if you're unable to do that, you can also send your question into the chat here on Zoom or into the LinkedIn comment section. So with that, I'd love to open up the floor to everybody.
Hey, GD.
Natan, good to have you.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
All right. Yeah, it's been a while. Sorry, I couldn't turn on my camera. Just listening though.
Got it. Understood.
I'm relating to what you were saying earlier because I'm transferring departments. So one of the things, it took me a while to get this transfer, but it's finally happening. And now that it is happening, there is a lot of the anxiety that you mentioned that is coming up, whether like how I would, the interaction with the new department, that will go. And also, even though I've done this at school, there's always like the starting of a new project or a new department. And yeah, so the two things that I was thinking of is like, one is the pep talk that I would like to have a pep talk with you. I might call you as well. And just how to talk about myself. I think that's one of the things that you mentioned about like, okay, yeah,
Yes.
I know this, but there is always like the thinking of like, they know better than me because they were there. So that's something that I was thinking about as I was calling in.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Natan, for jumping in here. So you have and did you move to Tucson?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Congrats. Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Okay, so when did this transition happen?
So I started this new company like about a year ago, but
keep going,
Natan. Yeah, I started this new company about a year ago, and I applied for this new job or this new department about 6 months ago.
Okay.
And I just heard that they accepted me and they wanted me to transfer as soon as I'm available. But
Okay.
I am finalizing my tasks with the current department and then transition.
Okay. There's a couple things I want you to do. One is to do an inventory of the current role that you've had. Think of it like a college course,
Uh-huh.
and grade yourself on the different aspects of it. What did you do well? And where do you get an A, B, C, D, etc.?
Okay.
And that'll help get you grounded as you're going into the next role. And are you going to be working with a new team? Are you meeting all new people?
Yes. Yeah, it's a new team.
Okay. So, and is it virtual or are you going to be in person?
I think it will be mostly in person, and I would really like it to be in person, like at least to know the people and get acclimated well. So I'm a I don't know the exact dates, whether it's going to be hybrid or not, but my goal is to be available as much as I can, at least until I know what's going on.
Okay. So, well, congratulations again. What do you think you should do to help you acclimate and integrate well?
The first thing that comes to mind is to be available, like to be available to the teams, like support or like take on tasks. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. And yeah,
Okay. So, got that. Now, remind me, where did you graduated Nourishment and Self-Care Lab,
yeah,
and you haven't moved on to Personal Power Lab yet?
not yet.
Okay. So, in this, you're a very warm guy. You will be available. Your personality is fairly available to people. So I don't have any concerns about that. What I think you're going to want to do is meet with people and be remember the care personality assessment.
Yeah.
You're an analyzer.
Yes. And a
So
little bit
you're
of
gonna
analyzer, cooperator, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. You're going to want to turn up your regulator energizer. Because when you get there, and you don't have to, I don't want you to take on a whole bunch of responsibilities right away. The most important thing for you to do is to have one-to-ones. So have one-on-one meetings with people. If you can do it in person, go get coffee for lunch or coffee breaks or after work, whatever. Just make it happen. What you can say is, I'm super excited about, this new role. And I know that one of the most important things is to get to know everybody as people, just to help us relate and have a good relationship going forward. I love to get to know more about you. I'm new to the area. So I want to find out, tell me, I want to find about what you do here, what you like, what you recommend to me. I've shared this several times before about the global corporations back in the late 90s that tried to do projects all over email, and they failed because people didn't know who they were talking to. So they'd get an email from somebody, and even though they know the answer, they know the next steps they were accomplished in their jobs. What neuroscience has ended up showing is that if we don't have a template for who we're interacting with, we just don't make decisions. So you going in there and getting to know people is the number one thing. And don't, if you can, don't start taking on, don't say yes to everything right away.
Okay.
Your cooperator side, that's kind of my side is I'll jump into something, I'll say yes to everything and then hate everybody for it. So
I'll watch out for that. Thanks.
You bet. Is this what you're looking for, Natan?
Yeah. This is it. Thank you. Thanks, GD.
Cool.
This is one of the things that I'm looking for. And like I said, I will give you a call whenever as
Set
things
up,
go
yeah,
by.
set up
But
a time. You talking about yourself is the other thing we mentioned.
yeah,
Awesome.
thanks, Judy.
You bet. Good to hear you.
You
Well,
too.
fantastic. Thank you, Natan. So I am opening this up to all questions. Feel free to jump in or share how you relate to Natan in a transition.
George, could I take you back to emotional intelligence?
Yes, and Terry next. Frederick,
Okay.
yes. What about emotional intelligence?
No, it's about keeping the right balance between showing that you are able to control your emotions, control yourself, show that you are in control, but at the same time also demonstrating that you are capable of showing empathy. Because sometimes, especially when you're not able to relate to certain situations, contexts, people say, no, you are too hard, that kind of thing. How do you maintain that balance?
Well, first of all, to say that in this game of internal space, an inch is like 10 miles. Any progress is challenging for anybody over the age of 7 or 8. So the way that we see the world is pretty hardwired into us by the time we're 7 or 8. And so from that point on, changing that kind of core template that we have is very challenging work. So setting it up that way. That being said, a little bit of progress in the realm of social and emotional intelligence goes a really long way. People will notice the difference. So I don't like looking at things in terms of balance. One of my mentors has done lots and lots of yoga and has all that new agey stuff, and he was back from the 60s. So he was like, yeah, the lightweight stuff you all talk about these days is BS. Anyway, so but his point that he was making to me around balance was that if I'm trying to balance between two things and I'm putting my focus on that balance, I now have created another point that is a distraction, which is trying to be balanced. So now I've got 3 things going on. And so it actually can throw me off. If I'm riding a surfboard or skating, it comes from me practicing and being aware of my body. And so we want to break it down. The way that we approach this is that we want you to become more and more you. If I start to understand that I'm come from a conservative Christian background where being angry was absolutely off the table. I was just not allowed to be angry. If I was, something was wrong with me. Well, then I spend most of my time trying not to be angry, but that will come out. And then basically anybody who I knew I could wail on, or anybody who I knew I could abuse to some degree, that's where my anger would leak out. I would take it out on my younger cousins. That's the truth. So that's kind of what happens, Dad's at work, is challenged there, gets put down by boss or something, comes home, takes it out on the family. And so understanding that anger is going to be an essential part. And if I don't learn how to integrate it, if Dad never learns how to use his anger in relationship with people at work, it's going to keep happening that way at home, or he's just going to numb out, drink, get high, whatever. So if I'm looking at me as being the best person I can be, moving towards my potential, the balance question kind of falls away. There's times where I work really hard and I play really hard. I listen to myself around that, and I'm always kind of sorting this out. And so I'm learning, me personally, how to integrate my anger, how to be, if we're thinking about it in driving, instead of from 0 to 60, I have learned how to drive through the city at 25 miles an hour with my anger. And that's an appropriate use of my anger there. It makes sense. Is this helping?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. Cool. And Frederick, I know the times are going to be insane for you, given where you're at. But if you want to dig in deep on this, come to the More Life training. It's in a couple weeks. It's in the chat. It'll serve you a bunch.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for the question. There's a lot more to dig in on that, but I want to check in with Terry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking about your question about what you need to maybe round out your professional skills just to make yourself more marketable. And I was thinking about the digital piece that Frederick just mentioned, making sure that your tech skills, are there like programs like 6-month or 6 weeks programs that you can join to help with that? Or where do you find that information?
I'm going to put that question to the group. I know that there are, and I don't know what they are, but I definitely know there are.
Okay.
Does anybody on here know where Terry can find, and what can you say more about what kinds you're looking for?
Well, I mean, past just Microsoft and Safari and PowerPoint. I mean, any of those programs. I mean, there's so many to choose from. Just where can I find information about programs, I guess, that I could choose from?
I can give just maybe a couple tips on that. Google is your best friend, but coming from a contracting firm where we had different contracts that required various skill sets, things that we would look for when hiring candidates would be software like, do you have Asana training, which is a project management tool? Before, people would use Microsoft Project. Now they're gravitating more towards Asana because you can categorize your tasks, you can assign it to someone. It is like a calendar for deliverables. So I've seen that. I didn't understand why we were gravitating towards that, but then now being out in the job field myself, I'm starting to see other employers are preferring that as a skill if you have it, and also Visio. Google, like I said, is always your best friend too. If you Google top softwares to have for project managers or certifications, a lot of things will pop up, but Asana and Visio I've seen to be very grateful, very helpful, as well as like Adobe Creative Cloud, that suite.
You said Asana, Adobe Cloud, and what was the other one?
Visio, VISIO.
VISI.
Yeah, and it's really helpful with creating flow charts and stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. Leslie, thank you. And Terry, thanks for the question. And Beth is saying that LinkedIn has training programs as well. Beth, can you say more about that? Oh yeah, I got it. You're on the phone, and unmuting there is a challenge. Terry, oh, you're taking notes. Let me know when you're done.
Okay, I'm done.
Any more questions or any updates on your search?
I have been networking with a company who has partnerships with lots of businesses. So I've been active with them, and I've also been active on following up on some of the interviews that I had in the works. So like last week was pretty busy. Fantastic.
Okay, good. And can I share a little bit about you for everybody?
Sure.
So the process so Terry, you've been joining in for a few weeks. We've had a session together, and At the beginning, I was talking about the networking part. So the components of what goes into somebody getting the job that they want. And a very important part of that is intentional networking and knowing who you want to talk to. So Terry, you're coming here, you're checking in with people here. You just got some information that you needed. It also just neurologically, if we want to go deep into it, everybody has mirror neurons. And so as you're seeing other people working on things that you're working on too, it actually excites your brain, creates positive vibes, and encourages you and keeps you motivated.
Absolutely.
So networking has all kinds of wonderful things about it. People will often say, I'm an introvert. If we take that to the extreme, nobody's an introvert. We're all dependent on each other. We would not develop, there's all kinds of research and studies on this. If you take a baby and they have no physical contact, no contact with humans, they could have food and all of that, they won't develop, they'll die. Most of them will die within 6 months. And so being with people and connecting on some level is actually critical for life. So yes, I might be uncomfortable, I might have anxiety with people, I might have all of that stuff, but underneath it, we're social creatures. And so reaching out, being with that discomfort is one of the most important things. So I love it. I love that you're doing that and that you're checking in. So thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate everyone, that's on the call that shares their experience. I mean, I would probably label myself an introvert in some way. I mean, I can be extrovert, but I think we put labels on ourselves to tell ourselves what we are not able to do. But being a part of this group makes you go, yes, I need to push beyond things that are comfortable.
Oh, I love that. That's so true. Putting a label on myself to tell me what I can't do. F that. All right, nice. Cool. Well, thank you, Terry.
Sure.
So again, we're here every Wednesday, noon to 1. We've got about another 18 minutes. I invite anybody to jump in and share where you're at, your progress, or any questions that you have. How can we support you today?
I have one question, George. How do you tailor your responses based on the requirements that are in the job description? Do you go in with the approach, here's how you've delivered results in that area, or do you stick to how long you've been doing this? Let's say standard operating procedures. This is how long I've developed it for how many different organizations, or do you want to go into the effective part of that?
Results.
Yeah, results.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. Yep. If analyzer personality type is interviewing you, they'll ask you more questions. If they want to, they will, but you don't need to lead with that. Yeah. And another thing, as markets and jobs change and everything shows that things are changing faster and faster. I mean, people used to work at one place their entire career. If you're under 30, that's never going to happen, or most likely not going to happen. And lots of people are having more and more job transitions in their career. Things are changing a lot. And so employers are less and less looking at how long have they had this experience, and more looking at, are they somebody who gets results? Because that's what we need. And the market may change, things may change, and their experience might not count for anything if they're unable to get results. So it's my hunch is that trend is just going to continue.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, because I tend to gravitate towards this is how long we've been doing this, and I have all of these results, but then I don't end up sharing how us developing this or drafting this procedure has impacted the organization. So that's a very good angle and approach to go with, and I think it'll be very much more effective.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing about this, Leslie, hearing about the results and in hearing about, well, and so I'll bring this in. As I was talking about myself earlier with coming from conservative Christian background, it was so against the rules for me to brag or to like toot my own horn. And so I was on this leadership retreat this last weekend, and in there were a bunch of guys, who a bunch of guys I look up to. And as I was sharing and stuff, they kept just making fun of me about how I put myself down and how I act like I don't know stuff and how, and they're just like, George, what are you doing? Knock it off, own it. And it creates more security for others when you do that, Leslie, or when you say, this is what I do, these are the results I get. But for whatever reason, I can think of like 100. A lot of us are not really trained in that, or we go too far in the other direction and we're really insecure and we end up bragging a lot to try to compensate, which again, then is also out of rapport. So we're looking for mutuality, connection and relationship, and you being curious about what the company needs, what that role means, and in how what you've done in the past, how you can bring that to that new role and how your skills are going to translate, and just being really open about yourself. And that's going to probably get you the best results. Okay, cool. We got from Negus, there are master classes on LinkedIn. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Cool. Well, we've got a few more minutes. Good to see some new faces on here. Good to see some returning people. Opening the floor to any questions. Joe, if you've got a second, I'd love to hear from you, see how it's going.
Well, George, everything's going very well. Things are moving forward. Getting into my, late September will be my first 100 days in the job. So I'm still I'm coming out of the learning mode of the first 30, 45 days, getting into the comfortable feel of what's going on and how things work in that middle range. And then at the end of the 100, start looking at what decisions and influences I can make as business teaches you that, your first 90 days. So we're still working that. But one thing that's happened is a longtime friend of mine who was a media person wants to do a first 100 days of the new chief, and one is to market HBD as a community member and how we serve the community, but also that I'm a person that came from this community. I am giving back and serving the community that I grew up in. So I'm not somebody who moved here a year ago. I'm somebody who's lived here for the last 50 years in that aspect of why Hawaii is so unique and different from other states where you can move and travel between borders. Here, you can't do that. You have to fly in and then I guess, assimilate into the culture, I guess. So things are going well. I'm enjoying.
Good to hear, Joe. Are you doing any video stuff?
I've done a lot of media outbreaks, and we did one kind of like an undercover boss kind of thing where I put on civilian clothes and I got out and I was issuing the blue and white vehicles to the police officers that were driving them that day. And so those are things that I did, and everybody was kind of nervous, a little. Some were excited to see the chief handing out keys and signing forms for them and helping wipe down cars and get them ready for the next shift. So just a way to show that the chief is a part of the fabric of this department.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna see if I can find any stuff of you online in any video stuff. So
I've done most of the morning shows on the television. And then I do a morning radio show every Thursday at 7 AM our time. So KHVH radio, it's on iHeartRadio. They have a podcast, I guess they're, so one of the first ones, or I did one with three majors and we talked about crime and traffic problems. And I think right now that's the highest rated show that he's had since he started his radio show, Rick Hamada show.
Oh, fantastic.
And he's originally from Chicago, but he's a local person of roots here and moved back to Hawaii.
Okay. That's exciting. I look forward to listening to that. And that
Great.
I'm sending a intro to Dr. Bob Wright and you, as we talked about. They'll be out in Hawaii in November. So
Yeah, so please get a hold of me in November. Like I said, I'll be in Dallas for a conference in October, but I'll be back in November. Looking forward to, perhaps a lunch meeting or something with Dr. Wright and the group and have a conversation.
fantastic. Well, cool. Well, Joe, thank you. And I thanks for sharing that. I did not know that you were on a podcast, and that is great to hear. As you're developing your relationship with the community and that kind of thing, I think that's one of the best ways to do it.
So my first goal was to get the trust of the officers and employees in the department, right? Because I've been out for 20 years now. I'm coming back in. Some of them know me, or I have brothers that were in the department, so they know of us. They've heard our name before, even though they haven't physically seen us. So coming back in, so I've gone out to meet all the watches, all the officers. We're going to go out and meet all the employees that work in the special forensics and other departments, records, and things that we have that are civilian oriented. Communications, talking to our communications, what used to be called dispatch is now called communications. Mm-hmm. So our 911 operations center and all that. And so get to meeting all those people and really just have a personal conversation, let them ask questions of me, who I am. And that way, once I get all that, if I earn all their trust, because I don't assume I'm going to get it, I have to earn that. And then, as at the same time, I'm with them rebuilding the trust with the community.
Got it. No, yeah, okay. That's fantastic. So you're in your first 100 days. How far along are you in those meetings?
So we've met most of the patrol officers. I'd say about 80%, almost 90%. The civilian wise, I've talked to them just walking around the station, which kind of freaks people out because normally the chief stays, is less visible in previous leadership or administrations. Mine is very, it's just me. I like to be out there. I like to get dirty. I like to put my hands in stuff and see what's going on to figure out how all these things work. And, I still like to be, I still have the mindset of what a police officer means, right? And how that is impactful to the person, right? And how you as a police officer, how do you live your life, right? You wear this uniform 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, depending on what shift you're on. And then you have a couple days off. So it's really important on how that works and what I tell everybody as I meet them is, I might be the face of the department on the media, on the news, in the city administration, but all of them are really the face of this department. Every time you engage with the public, good or bad, that is how the public perceives you, how they perceive the Honolulu Police Department. So we treat everybody with dignity and respect. You do that and we'll be just fine.
Fantastic.
And so far that's resonating in the department.
Well, I am so happy to hear this. In my opinion, they elected the right man for the job. And I'm just so happy to hear the way that you're going about it, and that I'm saying this for everybody, the process of those meetings of one-to-one contact with everybody and how important that is to create that solid foundation of a relationship. Like what Joe is saying, all the many things that are going to come and happen after that, the way that you're going about setting yourself up for success there is beautiful, very, very beautiful. and, you know, encouraging and inspiring. So thank you.
Well, thanks, George, and thank you and Dr. Wright for, a little over a year ago when I started coming to, or getting online with all of you and learning from what you were teaching and helping, me through that year-long process of this selection to be the next chief. So greatly appreciate all that work.
An honor. Fantastic. Well, everybody, we've got just a few more minutes. Is there any last questions or concerns that anybody wants to pop in with before we wrap up? Frederick, anything else? I know you've got your hands full.
No, I think I'm okay for now.
Okay. The other thing I'll say, Frederick, about the training I'm inviting you to, our work originally was designed for leaders in the community. So doctors, therapists, like the people who didn't have anybody else to go to get supervision. And so the training, the More Life training, a lot of therapists, lawyers, social workers, people who need CEUs, other coaches, come do this training to get the CEUs and to deepen their nourishment and self-care while up against significant challenges. And one of the things that people have found, and it's, I referred this before, Bernard Bass and Rizzio, resonant leadership, and where they're studying burnout. And when people are faced with significant challenges, a lot of it has to do with how do I get nourishment from the challenging stuff that I'm engaged in. When in some inner city schools in Chicago or inner city schools in the US, being a teacher is really, really challenging job. And so there's a ton of burnout there. So they did a study on this and found that teachers who would just go to work and then disconnect to try to nourish themselves didn't actually work. But if the teachers who also stayed on and worked over hours all the time, they burned out too. They found that it was teachers who went in, showed up for work, put their best foot forward, really tried hard, and then because they are this kind of social volunteering person, then they would go volunteer for some completely different organization that had nothing to do with their community. And they found that those are the teachers who actually developed, didn't burn out, and were able to successfully transform that organization. So there's, with some of what I imagine you're up against, there's ways of making sure that you're getting nourished in what you're doing. That I'm excited for you to investigate.
Okay, thank you.
You bet, and it's one of the reasons I coach. I mean, I get a lot out of my coaching sessions. Sometimes I wonder if I should be paying them, because it's really fulfilling and gives me a lot of insight about myself and my relationships with my family and friends. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining in today. Great questions. Great to meet some of you for the first time. We are here every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. Look forward to seeing you all again. You can find us online. There's all kinds of evening workshops and trainings and things that we do. And as I mentioned earlier to Frederick, we're in the process of developing an app that helps you with conversations and other things as well. But that's one of my main focuses, because I'm always going to have another meeting or upcoming conversation that I have anxiety about. And so we want to give people a tool, whether it's an interview or conversation with your manager or with a difficult employee or whatever that is. We want to give you a tool that you're able to use again and again and again. And then we'll have other things like the personality styles and some of the networking skills and that sort of thing in there as well. So look forward to sharing more about that with you, getting any of your input and feedback on what we're developing. Please do let us know. You can email me, you can email Jane or me, and we look forward to being in touch.